Very good morning, class 11. So today let's continue with the reading of the chapter Silk Road Only from the book Hornbill, written by Nick Middleton, right? So we have discussed that how author went on a journey to Mount Kailash for his Korah. He had Stin with him and earlier Daniel, but Daniel stopped his journey in between, and now author was Stin, and he reached to the area, the place called Hor. It was a very miserable place for him. And the last we read about that how he was sitting in one of the cafe and he had a tea there. Meanwhile, Sin was repairing his car there. He was taking care of the scene. So we are on page number 78. We need to understand from here. I was served by a Chinese youth in military uniform who spread the grease around on my table with a filthy rag before bringing me a glass and a thermos of tea. Half an hour later, Sten relieved me from my solitary confinement and we drove past a lot more rocks and rubbish westwards out of town towards Mount Kailash. Now he mentioned that when I was sitting there in that miserable place or in one of the cafe, broken windows, and I was looking from one of the broken windows, I was looking outside the Lake Mansarovar. So there was a youth came, a Chinese youth. He was dressed up in a military uniform and he cleaned my table with a greasy cloth piece only and served me the thermos and a glass. It was a very bad scene for me. I was not feeling that comfortable there, and half an hour later Sin come and he took me from there, and I felt so relieved that he came up and I'm not more in confinement area, he thought. So now he mentioned about his experience of this area. He started comparing his experience with the other people which he have read about in the books. My experience in Hor came as a stark contrast to accounts I had read of earlier travelers' first encounters with Lake Mansarovar. So he said that my experience of Hor was totally opposite of those experiences which I have of earlier travelers who came to this place, and they have written so beautifully, but my experience is very bad and pathetic. He said about this Lake Mansarovar. He mentioned that how he read about Ikai Kawaguchi, who was a Japanese monk who arrived to the place Lake Mansarovar in 1900, and he was so moved, that Ikai Kawaguchi, by the sensitivity of the lake that he burst into tears. So his experience was too good while visiting that Lake Mansarovar that he bursted into tears. And then he mentioned about that a couple of years later, the hallowed waters had a similar effect on Sven. Hallowed water means basically this Lake Mansarovar had a similar effect on Sven, who was a Swede, who wasn't prone to sentimental outbursts. So he's mentioned that a couple of years later, a person came, Sven, a Swede, who was not that sentimental, but when he reached to this place, there was a sentimental outburst. He literally cried. And he said, but I am having a totally opposite experience here. I basically had not enjoyed this place at all. Now it was dark by the time we finally left again, and after 10:30 p.m. we drew up outside a guest house in Darchen for what turned out to be another trouble night. So around 10:30 night they reached to the Darchen area. Basically, and he had a troublesome night there because he was caught up by the cold, right? Kicking around in the open air rubbish dump that passed through the town of Hor had set off my cold once more. So he had a cold now. Though, if truth be told, it had never quite disappeared with my herbal tree. He said, even I had a herbal tree, but still my cold was not going away. One of my nostril was blocked again. So one of the nostril was not working. He was just breathing from one of the other nostril. As I lay down to sleep, I wasn't convinced that the other would provide me with sufficient oxygen. So he mentioned as soon as I lay down on the bed, I was not able to breathe properly with the another nostril. I was not able to have that sufficient oxygen. So every time whenever he used to lay down, he used to sit up at that time. My watch told me that he was 760 meter upwards now. It wasn't that much higher as compared to the Ragu earlier. So he had this nocturnal disturbances by now, but they still scared me. So he had at night disturbances which were haunting or scaring him. Tired and hungry, I started breathing through my mouth. So he thought that I should breathe through my mouth now. After a while, I switched to single nostril power, which seemed to be admitting enough oxygen. But just as I was drifting away, I woke up abruptly. So although he started breathing from his mouth, later on he started breathing from one of the nostril. So as soon as it seemed that he was a little comfortable, once again he woke up abruptly. Something was wrong. My chest felt strangely heavy. So he was not feeling good. He was very uncomfortable. His chest was heavy. He sat up, and movement that cleared my nasal passages almost instantly and relieved the feeling in my chest. Curious, I thought. And he thought when my chest would be clear of, when my nasal passage and nostril would be clear of. So he would be relieved at that time. So he was not feeling well at Darchan. He had a troublesome night. So till here we are reading in. Let's see what would happen, how he would be recover up from that, and whether he would be able to complete the Quora later on or not. So I guess it's clear to everyone. So you need to understand that author was in the cafe of horror, a miserable place for him. Then he mentioned about a Chinese youth who served him in a very greasy manner. He cleared up the table. Then his experience of horror was totally different with Ekai Kawagachi and Sven Hedden. Then at around 10:30 he reached to the Darchan. Troublesome night for him because one of his nostril was blocked up. Although they were 4760 meter upwards, not that too high, but still he was not able to breathe properly, tried to breathe with mouth, then not able to sleep, and his chest was also heavy at that time. So this you need to cover up right now. If any doubt, clear it out, and the next portion we will do it in the next class. Thank you and God bless you all. Send the worksheet before 11 a.m. God bless you.